I want you to imagine, just for a second, being trapped in an entirely toxic environment.
Right.
And I'm not talking about a bad day at the office, you know?
Yeah, or like a friend group that just gossips a little too much.
Exactly. I am talking about a pervasive, just suffocating ecosystem where almost every single person around you, including the adults who are literally paid to protect you, are actively trying to tear you down.
It's a terrifying scenario.
Yeah, it is. They are picking at your deepest insecurities. They're mocking your biggest ambitions. And like they are physically intimidating you to the point where you cannot walk out your own front door without looking over your shoulder.
Wow.
So here's the question you have to ask yourself. If you were stuck in that exact scenario, how far would you go to escape?
That's the real crux of it, isn't it?
Yeah. Would you pack up whatever you could carry and just run blindly into the night? Or would you do something entirely different? Well, would you just pretend to leave while secretly staying behind, hiding in the shadows of your own hometown, and completely rebuilding yourself from the ground up?
I mean, it is a question that forces us to really look at the absolute extremes of human adaptation, you know?
Right.
Because when the physical exits are barricaded, the human mind is forced to engineer a trapdoor.
Yeah, a trapdoor.
And sometimes that trapdoor is constructed entirely out of fabrication.
Completely made up, which is wild because today we are doing a deep dive into someone who actually did that.
Yeah, we are.
We're looking at a highly personal, deeply conflicted, and entirely anonymous account from a 19-year-old student living in Mexico.
It's a fascinating post.
It really is. It is essentially this raw confession of a massive, elaborate deception he orchestrated, wrapped around this really agonizing question of, did I do the right thing?
And we should probably establish right away that we are not here to act as a moral tribunal today.
No, definitely not.
We aren't going to just stamp this teenager's actions as unequivocally right or wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission here is to dissect the psychology of survival.
Right, the mechanics of it.
Exactly. We're going to look at the anatomy of this life-altering lie and explore this incredibly rare phenomenon where a completely fabricated reality, a lie, accidentally serves as the blueprint for genuine, profound personal transformation.
It's incredible.
We are looking at what a human being does under just unendurable pressure.
Because, and I think this is so important for you listening to understand, this isn't a retrospective.
No, it's not.
We aren't analyzing a story from a decade ago where the dust has settled. We are dropping you into an active, unfolding situation.
Yes.
There is a ticking clock right now. There is a suspicious ex-girlfriend who has suddenly resurfaced.
Which is always complicated.
Oh, always. And there's a confrontation looming on the horizon that could literally blow this kid's entire secret life wide open.
The stakes are incredibly high.
But to understand those stakes, we have to understand the pressure cooker he was living in before he built his trapdoor.
Right, because you really cannot understand the necessity of the lie without first understanding the suffocating reality of his baseline environment.
We have to look at his profile.
Let's look at who this kid is before it all hits the fan.
Yeah. So he's 19 years old. And right away, he casually drops some stats about himself in this post that are frankly staggering for anyone, let alone a teenager in a hostile environment.
He's incredibly gifted.
He has a perfect 4.0 GPA, and he speaks 4 languages fluently. 4.
That's a massive intellectual load.
I mean, I barely speak one sometimes. But he is highly driven, uniquely ambitious, and he is channeling all of that energy into applying to prestigious universities in Europe.
Right.
He is looking far, far beyond the borders of his immediate reality.
Which paradoxically is exactly what makes him a massive target in a stagnant community.
Yeah, I want to throw an analogy at you here because people usually use that call poppy syndrome thing, right?
Yeah.
Or the crab bucket metaphor. The crabs pulling down the one crab that's trying to climb out.
Very common ways to describe it, yeah.
But I feel like those are a little too passive for this situation. It feels more like a closed-loop immune system.
Oh, interesting.
Like, think about the town as an organism. The organism has achieved homeostasis. Everyone knows their place. Nobody expects too much. Nobody threatens the status quo.
Right, a very rigid baseline.
Exactly. Then you have this kid, a 4.0 multilingual student applying to Europe. To the organism, he is a mutation. He's a foreign body.
That makes a lot of sense.
And what does an immune system do when it detects a foreign body that threatens its baseline? It attacks it ruthlessly to neutralize the threat and restore the mediocre baseline.
That is a highly accurate way to frame the hostility he was facing. His ambition wasn't just like an annoyance to them.
No.
It was perceived as an existential threat to the collective identity of his peers and, disturbingly, his teachers.
The teacher's part is just wild to me.
It is. But, the dismantling of this young man's psyche didn't actually start with the institution. It started with a very personal, incredibly destabilizing blow.
Right. The breakup.
Yes. About a year before he wrote this account, he went through a brutal breakup with his girlfriend.
And teenage breakups are always intense. We've all been there. But this one completely leveled him.
It shattered his foundation.
He writes with so much vulnerability about falling into this deep, desperate sadness. He actually admits to begging her to come back.
Which is so tough to admit.
Yeah, he uses the word pathetic to describe his own behavior during that time.
And the vulnerability there is key.
Mm-hmm.
He is already in a severely weakened state. His emotional defenses are completely down.
And his ex-girlfriend doesn't just reject him, she mocks him.
That's the cruel part.
She laughs at his desperation and then immediately moves on with someone else.
Yeah.
So you have this incredibly smart, ambitious kid who is suddenly just emotionally shattered.
Feeling completely worthless.
Now, ideally, a kid in that situation finds a sanctuary somewhere else. You'd hope his school, his academics, his intellect would be his safe haven, right?
You would hope so. But the reality was the exact opposite.
Yeah.
The school wasn't a sanctuary at all. It was a gauntlet. The bullying he faced was systemic. It wasn't just a couple of kids bumping his shoulder in the hallway.
No, it was everywhere.
His classmates, and astoundingly, his teachers, mocked him specifically for his ambition to go to Europe.
The specific insults they used are so dark. Like, they didn't just tell him, oh, you probably won't get accepted, it's highly competitive.
Right, they went much deeper.
They told him he would amount to absolutely nothing. They told him he would become a prostitute or that he would end up begging them for money on the streets.
And you have to notice the architecture of those insults.
What do you mean?
Well, they are not random juvenile name-calling.
Yeah.
They are highly targeted psychological strikes designed to completely invert his identity.
Wow. Invert it how?
Think about it. He is an intellectual aiming for the highest echelons of academia. Their chosen method of attack is to tell him he will be reduced to selling his physical body or begging for literal scraps.
Oh, man.
It is an attempt to annihilate his self-worth and overwrite his future. They're trying to predetermine his destiny for him.
Wait, I have to stop you there because I genuinely struggle to wrap my head around this part.
Sure.
You're telling me a teacher, an adult who went to school, got a degree, and is legally employed to foster learning looks at a kid pulling a perfect 4.0 and mocks him.
Yes.
That doesn't make sense to me. Is this just pure cartoonish sadism? What actual mechanism drives an adult to try and crush a teenager's ambition like that?
It absolutely looks like pure sadism on the surface.
Yeah.
But fundamentally, it is driven by projection and geographical entrapment.
Okay, unpack that.
Imagine a teacher in a small, underfunded school who perhaps once had their own dreams of leaving, of studying abroad, of doing something grand. But those dreams didn't materialize. They settled. And to cope, they built a narrative that people from here don't do things like that.
Oh, wow. So it's a defense mechanism.
Exactly. That narrative protects their fragile ego. Then this 19-year-old shows up, and he is actually doing it. He is putting in the work.
And he's succeeding.
Right. His very existence shatters the teacher's protective narrative. If the student succeeds, it proves that the teacher's failure to leave wasn't an inevitability of their environment, but a personal failure.
That is terrifying.
By telling the student he isn't good enough for Europe, the teacher is desperately trying to validate their own life choices.
So the adults are using this kid to medicate their own regrets. That is just, it's so messed up.
It really is.
And it didn't even stop at verbal abuse in the classroom. The harassment bled into his physical world, too.
Yes, the physical threat level escalated.
The bullies started coming to his neighborhood. They would literally look for him near his house to intimidate him. He writes that he was trapped indoors out of sheer physical fear. He couldn't even step outside.
Which forces his body into a chronic state of physiological distress.
Right.
When you are hunted in your own neighborhood, your amygdala, the fear center of the brain, is constantly firing.
Just bathing in stress hormones.
Exactly. You are marinating in cortisol and adrenaline. Your nervous system is locked in fight, flight, or freeze.
And he's got nowhere to go.
No. At home, he is physically hiding. At school, he is verbally battered by both peers and authority figures.
Yeah.
And in his personal life, he is nursing a shattered heart. This is a complete breakdown of every pillar of safety a human being requires.
And it does break him, at least initially, because you can only live in that heightened state of fear and rejection for so long before the brain starts looking for an emergency exit, right?
Absolutely.
Which leads us to this really chaotic phase in his story, the rebounds and the rejections. When you are put under that kind of pressure, the coping mechanisms are usually pretty ugly.
Very ugly. When a person experiences profound emotional pain and a total loss of autonomy, the immediate instinct is to seek out anything that provides a hit of dopamine.
Just any kind of relief.
Right, or a temporary illusion of control. And for teenagers whose prefrontal cortex, the decision-making part of the brain, is still under construction, this often manifests in highly impulsive behavior.
Yeah, he writes that he felt completely lost, and his solution to distract himself was to try to kiss or hook up with anyone he could.
A very common distraction technique.
He just threw himself into this frantic, entirely out-of-character behavior.
But here is what separates him from a typical downward spiral.
What's that?
His metacognition.
Okay, unpack metacognition for me.
Yeah.
How does a big word like that apply to a teenager making bad choices at parties?
So, metacognition is basically this idea of thinking about your own thinking, right?
Okay.
It is the ability to step outside yourself and observe your own behavior objectively. Even while he was engaging in this frantic, dopamine-seeking behavior, he was acutely aware of how destructive it was.
He wasn't blind to it.
No, he didn't lose himself in the distraction. He explicitly writes that he regrets it every single day, that it felt pathetic, and crucially, that he knew this wasn't who he wanted to be.
Wow.
He had a split psyche. There's the traumatized teenager acting out, and the observer watching him do it with deep disappointment.
So he didn't lose his moral compass, he just couldn't read it clearly through the fog of all that trauma.
Exactly.
He knew he was spiraling. But just as he is wrestling with this internal chaos, the external world delivers an absolute masterclass in heartbreak. Let's look at his university applications.
This part is so tough.
This is where the tragic irony of his situation really peaks.
Right, because despite the chronic stress, despite the teachers actively rooting for his failure, his intellect and his sheer willpower yielded actual results.
Yeah.
He was accepted into a highly prestigious university in the Netherlands.
Which should have been the ultimate victory. I mean, it's the validation, it's the concrete proof that every single bully and bitter teacher was wrong about him.
It should have been, yes. But it immediately dissolved into a devastating reality check.
Because of the money.
Because of the money. While he had the intellect to get in, he did not secure a scholarship. And without that financial backing, his father simply couldn't afford the tuition.
It's so unfair.
The door to Europe opened, but there was an invisible, impenetrable financial wall blocking the doorway.
But the amazing thing is, he doesn't give up. He pivots. He applies elsewhere, and he gets accepted into another prestigious university, this time in Spain.
Another huge accomplishment.
And the best part, he actually gets a scholarship for this one.
Yeah.
You can really feel the hope rising when you read that part of the account.
You can. But the cruelty of socioeconomic barriers is that they are multi-layered.
Always a catch.
The scholarship covered tuition, but the remaining cost living expenses in a foreign country, flights, the raw economics of international relocation were still far too high for his family to bear.
Heartbreaking.
He did everything right. He achieved the goal, but he was denied by sheer circumstance.
Think about the impossible psychological tension that creates for a kid. The universe represented by these elite European universities is literally telling him, yes, you are brilliant, you belong here.
Right.
But his physical financial reality is saying, no, you cannot go.
It is the ultimate tantalization.
The escape rope is dangling 2 inches above his fingertips, but he just can't grab it. He is forced to remain in the exact environment that is actively trying to destroy him.
And that tension creates an unbearable cognitive dissonance. He knows he is meant for more, but his physical reality is dictating that he is trapped.
And it is in this precise window of agonizing vulnerability that the final breaking point occurs.
Yes.
And of course, it comes from a teacher. He writes about this specific devastating moment. A teacher, one of the adults supposed to be guiding him, looks at him and explicitly tells him that he should just leave wherever I could go and not stay.
We really have to analyze the weight of those words coming from an authority figure.
It's awful.
It is an eviction notice. But it's not an eviction notice meant to encourage him. The teacher isn't saying, go to Europe and conquer the world.
No.
The teacher's saying, get out of our sight because you do not belong among us. It is the ultimate dismissal, of his existence within that community.
So let's put the pieces together. He literally cannot escape physically because of the finances.
Right.
But he psychologically cannot survive staying because the bullying, the fear, and the rejection have reached a lethal level. Physical departure is impossible. Psychological presence is unsurvivable.
He is boxed into a corner where reality offers no solutions.
So what does he do? He engineers a third option. If he couldn't leave physically, he had to leave psychologically.
Which marks the transition from a narrative of victimization to an astonishing, almost terrifying display of agency. He decides to architect an illusion.
And this is where the story shifts gears completely. He doesn't just tell a little white lie to save face,
Yeah.
He engineers a masterpiece of misdirection.
A massive undertaking.
Let's dig into the actual mechanics of how a 19-year-old pulls off a con of this magnitude. He tells everyone, the bullies, the teachers, and most painfully, his best friends, that he secured a full scholarship and is leaving the country for Europe.
The detail about his best friends is critical here.
Why is that?
Well, if you are going to construct a lie designed to protect your life, it has to be hermetically sealed. If he told his best friends the truth, he would introduce a massive vulnerability into his armor.
Oh, because they might slip up.
Exactly. A slipped comment, a knowing glance in the hallway, an accidental text message, any of that could unravel the entire fiction. To protect the lie, he had to completely isolate himself inside of it.
But wait, how do you actually convince an entire school that you are moving across the world? You can't just walk into a classroom and say, I'm leaving, and expect everyone to buy it.
Especially his bullies.
Right. People are skeptical, especially the bullies who want to see him fail.
He understood that intuitively.
Yeah.
People don't just believe verbal declarations, they believe observable changes in behavior.
Show, don't tell.
Precisely. He knew he had to provide behavioral evidence of his departure.
The source notes that he intentionally stopped going to school for a few days before graduation.
Yes.
He played hooky specifically to simulate the chaos of someone who was frantically packing up their life and preparing for an international move. He created a physical absence.
It's so smart.
Then he came back just to make the grand announcement that he got in and was leaving.
It is brilliant manipulative psychology. By removing himself temporarily, he forced his peers and teachers to experience a microdose of a world without him.
Oh, wow.
When he returned to announce his permanent departure, their brains had already subconsciously accepted the reality of his absence. He made the lie tactile.
Then we arrive at graduation day, and this scene plays out in my head like the climax of a movie. The surreal nature of this goodbye.
It's cinematic.
Everyone is there. The friends he is actively betraying, the teachers who told him to get out, the bullies who terrorized him at his own house. They all line up to say goodbye to him. And he looks them dead in the eye, shakes their hands, accepts their farewells, knowing the whole time he is going absolutely nowhere.
The level of emotional compartmentalization required to execute that is staggering.
I can't even imagine.
To stand in front of your primary tormentors, to accept their fake well wishes or their genuine relief that you are finally leaving, and to hold the line on a massive fabrication, it requires you to fracture your psyche.
You have to split yourself in two.
Yes. There is the physical 19-year-old body standing in the gymnasium, and there is the architect of the lie, hovering somewhere above, managing the dials and making sure the mask doesn't slip.
But graduation is just the pilot episode of this deception. Once the school year ends, he has to actually maintain the fiction. He has to construct the avatar.
And he commits to it.
For the next year, he maintained this fake life. He told everyone he was living in Europe. He claimed he was thriving academically. He invented a girlfriend. He told them he had a great job, that he bought a motorcycle, and above all else, that he was incredibly happy.
Now look closely at the specific anatomy of that avatar.
Okay.
None of those fabricated details are random. If we cross-reference the avatar he created with the baseline trauma he experienced, we see that the lie is a point-by-point refutation of the bully's prophecies.
Oh, that's really interesting. Walk me through that mapping. How does a fake motorcycle connect to the bullies?
Let's break it down. What did the bullies predict?
That he'd be a beggar or a prostitute.
Right. They predicted absolute destitution and subservience. So what does he build? He invents a job and enough disposable income to buy a motorcycle.
A symbol of freedom.
A motorcycle is the universal, undeniable symbol of autonomy, freedom, and self-reliance. It is the exact opposite of a beggar.
Wow. Okay. What about the girlfriend?
His ex-girlfriend mocked him and discarded him instantly. So he invents a new, presumably wonderful European girlfriend, establishing that he's deeply desired and capable of a healthy partnership.
He's checking all the boxes.
And finally, the community tried to make his daily existence a miserable, fear-filled nightmare. So he projects an aura of overwhelming, radiant happiness.
That makes perfect sense.
The lie wasn't just a defensive shield to hide behind. It was an offensive psychological strike. He couldn't defeat them in the physical world, so he built a fictional universe where he was the absolute, uncontested victor.
That is heavy. The lie is his armor. It's a custom-forged suit of armor designed specifically to deflect their exact insults.
Exactly.
But here's the thing about armor. It's heavy, it's dark inside, and you can't wear it for a year without it fundamentally changing the shape of the body underneath it.
That's a profound point.
Which brings us to the hidden reality. What was he actually doing while everyone thought he was riding a motorcycle through Europe?
The hidden reality is where the true alchemy of this story happens. Because the massive amount of psychological energy he was previously spending just trying to survive the daily bullying was suddenly freed up.
Right, he's off the radar.
The predators thought the prey had migrated out of the ecosystem, so they stopped hunting. He was finally invisible in his own city.
And what does he do with that invisibility? He doesn't just sit in his room playing video games.
No, not at all.
He stays in Mexico, he finds a small local school, and he enrolls to study aeronautical maintenance. He completely pivots.
A huge shift.
He realizes Europe is off the table for now, so he chooses something highly technical, deeply demanding, and practical. And his motivation during this period is so incredibly pure. I want to read his exact words from the source.
Please do.
He says, "I wanted to become better than who I was back then. I used to hang around a lot, waste time, and not really improve myself."
That is a masterclass in extreme accountability.
It really is.
Think about the sheer volume of excuses he has at his disposal to play the victim. He was systemically bullied by adults, his heart was broken, and his legitimate academic dreams were crushed by financial inequality.
Anyone would understand if he just gave up.
Society gives him every right to be bitter, resentful, and defeated. Yet, in the shadows, his focus isn't on revenge against the bullies. It isn't on wallowing in the injustice of it all. His focus is entirely internal.
He's looking in the mirror.
He recognized that the previous version of himself, the kid who wasted time, was not equipped to build the life he wanted. So he quietly set out to forge a new identity.
And forge it. He did. The source material outlines this jaw-dropping montage of self-improvement. While living as a ghost in his hometown, he completely overhauls his existence.
The discipline is incredible.
He starts hitting the gym 6 times a week. He institutes long runs every Sunday. He picks up the guitar. He starts reading heavily.
Doing all the right things.
He takes up martial arts, and not just hitting a bag in his garage, he competes in a tournament and wins 3rd place.
We really have to look at each of those activities through the lens of trauma recovery, because this isn't just a generic self-help routine. This is highly specific rehabilitation.
Oh, so?
Take the gym and the running. This isn't about vanity. This is about somatic regulation.
Okay, stop right there. Let's clarify that for the listener. Somatic regulation sounds like a phrase from a psychology textbook. What does lifting heavy dumbbells or running for miles actually do for a kid who just spent a year terrified to leave his house?
Fair question. When you experience chronic terror, your body literally stores that stress. Your muscles are constantly tense, prepared for an attack that might happen at any second. Your nervous system is redlining.
Like a coiled spring.
Somatic regulation is the process of using physical movement to process and release that trapped traumatic energy. By lifting heavy weights, he is reestablishing a connection with his physical body in a controlled environment.
He's taking back control.
He is proving to his nervous system that he is strong, that he can handle resistance, and that the environment is safe. The repetitive motion of running helps bilateralize brain function, literally helping the brain process and file away traumatic memories.
So the gym is basically a physical mechanism to drain the cortisol out of his body. What about the other stuff?
Well, the guitar and the reading provide cognitive engagement. They foster a rich, complex inner life that doesn't rely on external validation. But the martial arts, that is the most profound.
Really? Why the martial arm?
He was physically hunted in his own neighborhood. He was made to feel physically defenseless. Choosing to learn martial arts is the ultimate reclamation of his physical safety.
Oh, that's powerful.
And stepping onto a mat in a tournament, facing an opponent and winning 3rd place, that provides undeniable empirical proof to his own brain that he is no longer helpless.
And then amidst all of this intense self-improvement, there is this absolute wildcard detail in the post.
The modeling.
The modeling. His aunt helps him get a foot in the door with some modeling gigs, and he ends up modeling for massive international brands like H&M and American Eagle.
It's wild.
I mean, think about the whiplash. The kid who was told he was a pathetic beggar is suddenly staring at his own face in an H&M campaign.
Love.
But the most revealing detail to me isn't that he became a model, it's that he stopped.
Exactly.
He writes that he only did it until he saved enough money and then he just walked away. Most teenagers, if they get a taste of international modeling, they are hooking their entire identity to that.
Absolutely.
They want the Instagram followers, they want the glamour, they want the validation, but he treated it like a temp job.
Because his core operating system had been fundamentally rewritten. He was no longer operating on an external metric of success.
He didn't need their applause anymore.
Before the trauma, maybe he would have craved the applause of the crowd or the validation of the bullies. But in the cocoon of his isolation, he developed an internal locus of control.
It was just a means to an end.
The modeling wasn't an identity. It was merely a financial tool to fund his overarching goal. The fact that he could walk away from that level of superficial validation proves how deeply his discipline had rooted itself.
I have a theory about this, an analogy that kind of pulls all this together. I want you to tell me if I'm off base here.
Let's hear it.
I'm trying to figure out how the fake reality of the lie interacted with his actual real-life self-improvement. It seems to me like the lie functioned exactly like scaffolding on a construction site.
Okay, I like where this is going.
When you build a skyscraper, you put up this massive metal framework around the outside. The scaffolding isn't the real building, it's hollow, but it holds the exact shape of the building, and it allows the workers to safely climb up and lay the actual bricks.
Right.
Did the immense pressure of maintaining this fake avatar, this highly successful, disciplined, happy guy in Europe, act as the scaffolding that forced him to build those actual habits in real life?
It's a great metaphor.
It's like he put himself in a witness protection program, created a cover identity, and then to survive the cognitive dissonance, he just had to actually become the cover identity.
That is an incredibly astute way to conceptualize the mechanics of his transformation. In psychology, specifically within cognitive behavioral therapy frameworks, there is a concept often reduced to fake it until you make it, but it is more accurately described as act as if.
Act as if, meaning if I act like a confident person, eventually I'll just be one. Isn't that just high-functioning delusion or avoidance?
It sounds like delusion, but it is actually deeply rooted in neuroplasticity. If you consciously act as if you are a highly disciplined, focused, and secure individual, you're forcing your brain to fire new neural pathways.
You're literally changing your brain.
Yes, you are forcing your body to adopt the posture, the routines, and the decision-making matrices of a successful person. Initially, it feels deeply inauthentic. It is scaffolding.
Right, it feels fake at first.
But over time, the consistent behaviors generate corresponding emotions and core beliefs. The repetition lays the bricks.
Wow.
He built the scaffolding of a European success story to deflect the bullies, but once he was safely hidden inside that metal framework, he went to work laying the heavy bricks of discipline, somatic regulation, and education. By the time the year was over, the avatar wasn't a lie anymore, it was a self-fulfilling prophecy.
But the thing about scaffolding is eventually the construction is finished, and the scaffolding has to come down.
Yes, it does.
Can't leave it up forever. Which brings us to the collision of worlds, because the reality he built in secret and the illusion he projected to the world are on a high-speed collision course.
And we must anchor this collision in his ultimate tangible triumph, because the silent labor actually paid off.
It really did.
The source confirms that this coming September, he is officially moving. He was accepted into a university in Spain, and this time the logistics are aligning.
And he has this incredibly mature moment of reflection about it. He notes that this Spanish university isn't as globally prestigious as the one in the Netherlands he originally aimed for. But, and this is massive, he says he is genuinely happy with it. He's going to get his degree, and he will secure his license as an aircraft maintenance engineer.
That acceptance of reality shows profound emotional maturity. He is no longer chasing the absolute pinnacle of prestige just to prove his worth to a toxic hometown.
He's doing it for him now.
He found a functional, practical, and highly skilled route up the mountain. He learned to fix complex machines while simultaneously fixing his own shattered life.
He actually did it. But just as he is taxiing toward the runway, preparing for actual liftoff to Spain, the ghosts from his past start pinging on the radar.
The cracks in the facade.
The hermetic seal on the lie starts to crack. First, out of nowhere, the ex-girlfriend returns.
Of course she does.
After nearly a year of absolute silence, she sends him a message claiming she lost her contacts and asks who was texting her. And he immediately suspects this is completely fabricated on her end.
And his suspicion is almost certainly correct. We have to analyze the timing of this. Why now?
Yeah, why now?
Why, after a year of silence, right as he is genuinely preparing to launch into his new life, does the person who brutally discarded him suddenly reach out?
I've seen this happen so many times. Like, people who dumped you have a sixth sense for when you finally moved on and leveled up.
They absolutely do. It is an intuitive radar for shifting energy dynamics.
So you think she sensed it?
Even if he has been physically hiding, human networks leak information. Perhaps she heard a rumor from his aunt. Perhaps a modeling photo surfaced on an obscure social media algorithm.
Oh, that's true.
Or perhaps it is just the psychological phenomena, where the absence of his desperate pursuit finally registered, creating a vacuum that she felt compelled to test. Her reaching out with a flimsy excuse about lost contacts is a probe.
A test.
It is the past knocking on the door, trying to see if the old, vulnerable, pathetic version of him will answer the bell.
And that knock on the door, that sudden intrusion of the past, triggers the central emotional dilemma of this entire story.
Right.
The guilt.
It's a heavy burden.
He writes extensively about feeling like a massive fraud. And I want to be clear here. He doesn't feel guilty about tricking the bullies.
No, not at all.
He feels agonizing guilt because he lied to the people he actually loved. He lied to his best friends. He lied to the few teachers who maybe didn't actively torment him.
Which is completely understandable.
And he is terrified because, due to some bureaucratic requirement, he has to physically return to his old high school in June to get some final paperwork. He is debating whether he should finally confess the truth to his friends.
This is the immense toll of carrying the armor. The guilt is corrosive. To ensure his psychological survival, he had to sacrifice authenticity with his loved ones.
A terrible trade-off.
Now that he is physically and mentally strong, now that the actual escape to Spain is guaranteed, the survival mechanism feels indistinguishable from betrayal. He is confronting the harsh reality that deception is never surgical.
What do you mean by that?
You cannot selectively lie to a community. A lie of that magnitude operates like a blast radius, infecting every genuine relationship it touches.
So he is wrestling with his conscience, trying to figure out how to dismantle the scaffolding ethically. But, and this is the craziest part, the choice is violently ripped out of his hands.
Yes.
This brings us to the absolute bombshell of the source material. This is the edit added to the very bottom of his post, an update that changes the entire landscape of the story. The bullies have discovered the truth.
The camouflage has officially failed.
The text messages he quotes in the update are chilling. Out of nowhere, a former bully sends him a text message. No punctuation, no context, just a blunt instrument of a sentence.
What does it say?
I know you're here.
Wow. Let's dissect the pure intimidation tactic of that message. I know you're here.
It's so ominous.
It is a declaration of surveillance. It is the predator tapping on the glass of the enclosure. The psychological intent is to instantly teleport him back to the paralyzing terror he felt a year ago when he was trapped in his house.
Just ripping him back in time.
It says, your safe room has been breached. The illusion is over. You belong to us again.
But it gets so much weirder and more insidious. Right after that, the bully's girlfriend also texts him, and she writes, I know you're here. Let's go out for drinks on Friday since you're here.
A completely different tactic.
Let's get drinks. Why on earth is the girlfriend of his tormentor suddenly inviting him out for a casual Friday night drink?
Because that text is infinitely more dangerous than the direct threat. The direct threat triggers his defenses. The invitation to drinks is a classic, highly sophisticated psychological trap.
A trap.
Why does she want to get drinks? It is certainly not to celebrate his presence. They want to draw him out of hiding. They want to get him into a physical space, a bar, a local hangout, sit him down, and systematically dismantle him in public.
They want to see the fraud in person.
Precisely. They want to corner him, interrogate him about his fake European life, watch him squirm, and mock the fact that he has been hiding in his hometown the whole time. They need to do this to reassert their dominance.
Oh, back to the immune system.
Oh, exactly. The organism thought it had expelled the mutation. Now it realizes the mutation is still inside, quietly growing stronger. The organism is rallying its defenses for a final lethal attack. If he goes to those drinks, he is stepping right back into the center of the crucible, just mere months before he is scheduled to board a plane to Spain.
And he admits in the post that he is completely paralyzed. He hasn't responded to the texts. He says he doesn't know what to do. The ticking clock is deafening. Friday is coming for the drinks. June is coming for the school paperwork. September is coming for the flight to Spain. Everything is converging.
His paralysis is a very standard trauma response, is the free state. His nervous system recognizes the familiar scent of the predators, and it is initiating an emergency lockdown.
That makes total sense.
The ultimate tragedy here would be if he allows their discovery of his scaffolding to invalidate the immense, undeniable reality of the bricks he laid underneath it.
Exactly, because they might have discovered the lie, but they have no idea about the martial arts, the discipline, the aeronautics degree. They think they caught a rat hiding in the walls, but they actually just cornered a completely different animal.
That's beautifully put.
Let's synthesize this incredible arc, because looking at the whole picture is the only way to answer his core question. He went from a heartbroken, bullied kid, trapped inside his own house by fear, to a master of deception who built an entire fictional universe to hide inside.
An incredible journey.
And under the cover of that darkness, he morphed into a highly disciplined, multilingual aeronautical maintenance student who models on the side, wins martial arts tournaments, and is literally weeks away from genuinely moving to Europe.
The sheer volume of transformation is undeniably spectacular. But we still have to address the empathy factor. We have to return to the agonizing uncertainty that compelled him to write the confession to begin with.
Right. I don't know if what I did was right or wrong.
So how do you, as an expert in human behavior, answer that? If he is asking us, what is the verdict? The answer requires holding two conflicting truths simultaneously. First, we must validate the heavy, corrosive burden he is carrying. Carrying a lie of that magnitude eats away at the soul.
Yeah, it has to.
It forces you to view everyone, even people who love you, as a potential threat to your security. He feels like a fraud because, strictly speaking, he is one. He deceived his best friends.
You can't just gloss over that.
We cannot romanticize that. We cannot pretend that massive deception is a victimless act or a perfectly healthy coping mechanism for everyday life.
Right. But we aren't talking about everyday life.
Exactly. Which brings us to the second truth. We must acknowledge the absolute necessity of the survival mechanism he deployed. He was drowning in a highly toxic environment that was actively, systemically trying to destroy his psychological future.
He was desperate.
The lie was the raft he built out of pure desperation when no other rescue boats were coming. Was it ideal? No. Was it messy and collateral damage inducing?
Yeah.
Yes.
But did it work?
But was it necessary for his psychological survival at that specific, critical juncture in his life? The empirical evidence of his massive personal growth strongly suggests that it was. He didn't use the lie to steal money or harm others. He used it to erect a shield so he could safely heal and grow.
And I think that is the perfect place to land this conversation, because it forces all of us to re-examine our rigid definitions of honesty. We are always told, from the time we're in kindergarten, that lying is inherently bad.
Right.
The truth will set you free. Right? We are told that we must always face our reality, no matter how grim, how painful, or how unfair it is.
It fundamentally challenges the absolute morality we apply to truth-telling.
It really does. So I want to leave you, the listener, with a final provocative thought. Something to really mull over as you go about your day. Think back to that toxic environment we talked about at the very beginning of this deep dive.
That suffocating ecosystem.
That suffocating space where the truth is weaponized against you and transparency only gets you crushed. Is it possible that in extreme, unendurable circumstances, fabricating a massive lie is sometimes the only way to build a safe room for your true self to grow? When your reality is actively trying to destroy you, what happens when a total fabricated illusion becomes the exact tool you need to finally be honest with yourself?